Good morning and welcome. It's back. It's true. We're live. It's DrivingMaul. We're Blokes Judge Rugby live every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Central African Time on Loud Radio. And
unless it's school holidays.
Yeah, then it doesn't happen.
Welcome back, bro. How are you?
I'm good, Sharky. Haven't seen you properly for about 3 or 4 weeks. There's been so much rugby, so many cards, so many refereeing decisions, so much ref stress. But aside from that, there's been plenty of decent rugby action.
There is quickly, and it's a couple of weeks old, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I just want to congratulate Durban on a phenomenal Community Cup win. To have to qualify as the last place guys and go through with the amount of rugby they played last year versus this year, exceptional result. And Western Cape now are the reigning club rugby champs.
And I believe Hammy's finished third in that.
Yes, only really started playing rugby in the fourth playoff, and and scored 60 but conceded 40. So
wow, crackerjack.
Yeah, it was an interesting game, and the league starts for us. The Hammies, Super A and all Western Province Club Rugby started this past weekend. Some good results and matchups, and then a lot of the sides had a bye for the first week, like Durbell and Hammies and Marties and UCT. They all start again this week, so we've got a full set of fixtures this week.
And I had actually completely forgotten about that, so we'll just tear into those. We'll pull the fixtures up and let you know what they are. Later in the show.
Yeah, okay.
Just some rugby-related news and more about the World Sevens Series. Confirmations for 2015-16 season. Vancouver joins the circuit. Sydney replaces Brisbane. Cape Town replaces PE. My liver has been twitching since that news was announced, and
I cannot wait. And
fuck it, dude. I was ready 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's definitely the right move. I know HSBC were heavily involved in that, and they want the Sevens to be in big cities and big spaces. That's why the move, I've never been to Brisbane, but that's why the move to Sydney for me is also an unbelievable one, just in terms of the city that Sydney is, and also what Cape Town represents. The only problem with Cape Town is all the Cape Townians have been begging for it and saying that this is definitely the best place to do it. Now that they've got it, they're actually going to pitch up.
They will, dude. Good luck getting tickets if you're not sitting there ready to go when they go on sale.
I am going
sold out in minutes. I'm going to call it now.
I've already booked a spot on my brother's in my brother's spare room, which is 180 meters away from the stadium. Or I could just sleep in the Habbies clubhouse.
Yeah, fair play. Or under the grandstand at the Cape Town Stadium. And then Singapore replaces Tokyo in the last change in the new look 10-leg World 7 Series, and that's a great move too. Tokyo's had a great run, but when you see how disappointing the crowd was for the final between the Blitzbokker and England, I have a suspicion that Singapore is going to be nothing like that given the size of the expat community. It'll be a la Hong Kong, and the new Singapore National Stadium, which opened in May last year, looks exceptional.
Yeah, I know. We were chatting about it off air. I actually I haven't seen it yet. Tokyo was a little bit of a disappointment. It was a bit chilly to end of the day. It was. Yeah. But they haven't... Also, just the general feedback from players and supporters and guys about how it is they said it wasn't a great one. But that was all after it had been announced that Tokyo was going to lose it. So obviously the guys are going to come out and say, it's not the right idea, yada, yada, yada.
Now, as we know, England won the last tournament stage in Japan, edging the Blitzbokker on the back of some shoddy refereeing. But what it does mean, with 2 legs to go in May, is that the Blitzbokker still sit top of the standings on 129 points. Fiji are up to second on 125. New Zealand on 120. And then, so it's
England on fourth, eh?
Yeah, they are. But so the top 3, any one of them can win it. In fact, England are probably also in with a shout if they go and win every tournament and the others don't end anywhere. But it's highly unlikely. But it's down to South Africa, Fiji and New Zealand to win the 7 series, and England and Australia are separated by 9 points in the race for 4th for the automatic spot at Rio 2016.
It's Australia's demise in Tokyo was quite interesting. They really did badly, and that really affects their Olympic automatic qualifications quite drastically. I thought New Zealand also dropped off, and South Africa did well to get through to the final, but we're beaten by a better side in England. And to be fair, we probably never expected to get beaten that way by England. I agree with you totally on the refereeing decisions. I think that turnover, I think it was Rodwell's try. No, it wasn't.
It was the front ranker's try on his own try line.
And then ran all the way. That turnover was a shocker.
Well, he basically got tackled, let the ball go, stood up, grabbed it, and got penalised for not releasing.
That was a little bit upsetting. But the South Africans will live and learn, and more importantly, is we've been sitting in third. We've been getting third spot finishes for the last 3 tournaments after playing pretty badly. We played better this weekend. We finished last couple of weeks ago. We finished second. We've got a lot to focus on. And have you seen our pool for the next for Scotland? It is a shocker.
I haven't.
Okay, it's quite horrible. That's what you get for finishing second. You get the pool of death. But anyway, that's something to look forward to, and that's the last 2 weeks of the Sevens World Series. So
in May. So we've got time to wait for that. What we were going to talk about next was Varsity Cup. And what a cracker. But in case you missed it, 2 weeks ago in the semis, unbeaten Shimlers defeated reigning champs UCT 21-10, and Picker edged the table-topping Turks 29-28 in Pretoria to set up a first ever Varsity Cup final in Bloemfontein. I was away, so I actually don't know how those 2 semis went. I'm assuming Shimlers bossed it at 21-10, but did Picker steal it with a last-minute penalty kick, or were they leading and got chased down?
No, it was a cracking game. Johnny Veldhagen scored a phenomenal try at the end to win the game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, brilliant try. There was an absolute cracking game. But just completely off the mix. I've just breaking news. Pat Howard has been signed by Northampton Saints. So there the Stormers go and lose another decent player.
And you have to wonder what goes on in the back rooms of at Newlands for all these youngsters to keep disappearing. We won't get on to Alistair Kunsier right now. Back to the Varsity Cup, and what a final. Shimlers comprehensively claimed their first ever Varsity Cup title with a 63-33 hammering of Picker. Fly half Neil Marais playing the game of his life, probably the offload of the season, with the chicken wing out the back for the little flanker who I've called to play Blitzbokker within a year. And a man of the match performance in the final, in my opinion. I don't actually know who got man of the match.
Get it.
No, he was exceptional. Scored a try, set up 2 or 3 others. The one pass for Nico Lee, the line was great, the hands were great, but the pass under the defending hands was right up there. Somehow the Picker 7 managed to avoid twice avoid a second yellow card.
Shocking.
That just shakes his head. He's still frothing from it last night.
It's ridiculous. You got a yellow card for a dangerous tackle. It wasn't a tip tackle. He didn't turn and drive him. He just pushed him backwards. It could have been yellow, could not have been a yellow, but it was a yellow.
Yeah.
After that, Shimlers are on attack 5 meters out with a line break. They get the ball. The ruck is then formed. Then he goes from the side to slow the ball down. The ref would give anyone a yellow card. That's a red zone. It's deliberate. It's cynical.
On attack.
It was disgusting. He should have got a yellow. The ref, you can see, already goes, you've been penalised already. If anything else happens again for the rest of the game, you're off. Second yellow would have been a red. Then in the second half, he puts in a late tackle on Neil Marais, who kicked the ball. It was late. It was malicious in a way that he really, there was no intention for anything else, and he could have hurt the guy. And then the ref still then goes, I know you're on a yellow card, so I'm just going to make it a penalty. It is piss poor refereeing, and everyone's like, we don't want to make the final one-sided and affect the game. That kind of behavior affects the game negatively. You must punish for that, and then Shimlers can go and dominate. Or maybe it picks up Picker and they play a great 14-man game. I don't know, but he deserved a red.
What I don't understand is how the Robert de Preer and James Small don't look at it on the second morning and say, you know what, this oak's borderline, let's get him off the park. We're playing in a final, we can't afford to be down to 14 men.
From 2 guys who couldn't manage their own. From 2 guys that didn't really manage their own.
And here's this offload. So 63-33, the rise of Shimlers. Are they on the bounce back? Franco Smith has put his hand up as a potential future coach of any decent side. His side play some absolutely superb rugby all round in terms of what they do. Their driving maul is right up there. I think they might be the first side to go unbeaten in Varsity Cup.
I don't know, but they had one draw, but they were unbeaten. I tell you one thing, they've had a very interesting varsity cup. For the last 8 varsity cups, their first 2, I think they finished 5th or 6th. Then they finished third, and third again, and then they finished 5th or 6th. Like, so they really have not been up there. They've really been falling short of knockouts and stuff like that. And yes, did they not just turn the tables a little bit? It was an unbelievable performance by Shimla's. And to be quite fair, they were never looked at as title contenders when they were going up against the other sides. They may have been unbeaten, but we all know how difficult it is to maintain
even
form.
At the start of the season, nobody was saying, look out for these guys. But what it does mean is that it's great news for Free State Rugby and probably ultimately Sharks Rugby, because the Shimla's, when Shimla's are on the rise, when you look at the bulk of their box over the years, and I'm talking in the 70s and 80s, were all, I mean, Shimla's had a side that was just ridiculous. It was Casey Pienaar, and the names just roll off the tongue in terms of
the
famous
same
Springboks.
as Dispatch Rugby out of PE.
Yeah.
Let's see how that does to EP. But that's a proper fine, that, my man. But it's great. I've always been a fan of club rugby, and whether it's varsity cup or not, they're still playing club rugby for me. Club rugby needs to be strengthened, and if our rugby is going to go anywhere in South Africa, we need to strengthen club rugby. We also need to maybe sort out central contracting so we can keep some guys.
Yeah.
But that's the bottom line. Well, and it's getting stronger, and with the Community Cup and the Varsity Cup, it's working, and people are starting to sit up and take notice.
And I was actually having this debate with Biobot Ami Kavlovich on Twitter last night, because he was banging on about the place, the Vodacom Cup has a place, and I don't think it does. Who watches it? I don't watch it. Do you watch it? I mean, I know you
Vodacom
watch
Cup's
a lot.
Is a stepping stone which we don't really need. I'd rather have those resources pumped into club rugby.
Absolutely, and allow those players to be playing club rugby as well.
That's the thing. Bearing in mind, we've got Curry Cup, we've got
which is
senior,
already watered down.
We've got Curry Cup under 21, under 19, and they might have an under 17 or something. But there's plenty age groups in the Curry Cups.
Yep.
That I don't have a problem with. If the guys are in those squads for Curry Cups, do it. Vodacom Cup is an extra step. Now, what Western Provinces have done is they've created a club to what is it called? They've created another Western Province team that is for club rugby amateur players. So it's Western Province Amateur, what it used to be called. It's now called Club to Curry Cup or Club to something, where they're now bringing guys. So there's now a second tier for them. So that, you know what I mean? So I just want it to be focused on club rugby, and then you move into a Curry Cup space.
No, absolutely, I agree with you. And people will say, yeah, but you've got your club rugby. There's the Varsity Cup, and you've now got the Community Cup. Etc. That's fine, but that's being played by like 8, and then I think it's 32 sides or that play in the Community Cup from start to finish. But there are far more clubs in rugby in this country, and there's an opportunity for them to be pumping the money that they're throwing into Vodacom Cup into the top tier club rugby in each of the provinces, and put those guys back into playing at club rugby level, where they are being exposed. The youngsters that are coming through the ranks are being exposed to playing rugby with guys who are in and out of Varsity Cup sides, and the word I'm looking for is Curry Cup sides and Super Rugby sides, because there are guys that have played at that level who are playing in Vodacom Cup. Now, why aren't they back at the clubs? And I'd love to have this debate, but I want to have Ami on with us. So we're going to park it, and I will get him on the show, and then we can tear him apart about it.
Cool.
On that note, I'm going to take a music break. We're going to take a music break. When we come back, we're going to be talking European Rugby, Rugby Champions Cup, Aviva Premiership, and Top 14. You are listening to DrivingMaul on Loud Radio. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to DrivingMaul on Loud Radio. It's time to talk a bit of European rugby, and I suppose we can get straight into it because the semi-finals are this weekend. And in case you missed it, the Rugby Champions Cup, which is basically what has replaced the Heineken Cup this season, although it's pretty much looks like the same fucking thing.
The Heineken Cup in new clothes, bro.
Yeah. Quarterfinals, when were they? 2 weeks ago. last week?
2 weeks.
2 weeks ago. Sarries got up over Racing Metro with a last gasp penalty from balls the size of...
the biggest plums on the planet. Marcelo Bosch has a 52-meter kick for a non-kicker to win the game or lose the game, and he has smashed it straight through the middle. One of the best chirps I saw. Anyway, it was a tight game, and Hammies went out well and won. But I saw a great chirp from one of the journalists. He was at the game in the box, and he heard one of the French journalists say, the nice thing about the English side coming to play here is they're not used to playing rugby in Clermont. And at the end of the game, this journalist turned to him and goes, but the Argentinians are. so that was quite entertaining. But that was it was a great result for Saracens, and they are
the only English side in the semis, because Wasps got seen off properly by Toulon 32-18.
Massive controversy about that game because Nathan Hughes was serving a suspension, which has now subsequently been turned over or overturned. So that red card against in the Viva Premiership when he kicked. Not kicked, but when George North was knocked unconscious by contact made by Hughes, or however you want to put it. It depends which side you're supporting. But that is it's quite a serious thing because he could have really made an impact for Wasps. So they feel a bit hard done by.
And then Leinster got up over Bath, and that one was also a closely run thing. But from what I remember, in terms of just following what was going on, Bath were actually pretty much leading that until the last 10 to 15 minutes, and Leinster somehow kicked their way to glory.
Bath were in with a massive shot. Ian Madigan had a decent game, but I tell you, the highlight for me of that game was when Peter Stringer came on for Bath, and the whole crowd and everyone stood up and applauded him when he came on. He's an Irish legend, and it was good to see, but tough for Bath. They could have won that. It could have gone either way. So the gap between the European powerhouses is shortening a little bit if you take Toulon out of that.
and Clermont, because Northampton went to Clermont and got absolutely raped 37-5.
Yes, what an unbelievable performance by Clermont. It was picture perfect. Yeah. Brock James, who I've always been a fan of, and I always think I believe he's underrated, just absolutely manhandled the Saints, and the Saints were put to the sword properly. Great
and
tweets.
Quickly as well. It wasn't like
it was over.
It was over inside the first 15 minutes. It was like, thanks for coming.
Great tweet by one of the Saints front rankers, thanking Clermont for allowing them to join their training session, and they look forward to doing it again next year. Absolutely brilliant. But it's the only way you can look at it. They got taken apart, and
schooled would be the word. The
thing is, and the irony is, Clermont then lost this weekend at home to Oyonnax in the top 14. So quite interesting leading in. It's going to fire them up, or it's going to put doubt in their mind. But Saracens won't hold back at all.
So that's the semi-finals this weekend. Saturday at where are we? Oh, I give up. I'm trying to figure out which time's which. It's 5:15 local time, which must be quarter past 4 local time, 4:15 South African time, because we're on the same time zone as France now. So 4:15 Saturday is Clermont versus Sarries. Huge game, but have a suspicion that Sarries are going to come up short against Clermont. But as you say, Oyonnax went to Clermont and beat them, where they haven't lost at home in the league in 8 years.
Yeah, but they also understand that they're playing at a different stadium, huh?
Yeah.
So they're playing at another stadium somewhere else in the semis, and it's 4:15
in Saint Etienne at the
Stade Goulele.
Yeah. And then the other semi-final, which is massive. That's
4:15 Sunday.
Yeah, that game you have to watch, in my opinion.
Toulon, Leinster.
It will be monstrous.
I think Toulon are going to beat them. I think Leinster...
It's still going to be monstrous.
Yeah, I think Leinster are beatable, but they will pick them up for the game. But we'll have to see. I know Lee Halfpenny's under a bit of an injury cloud, and I know Matt Guito played this weekend, so it looks like he's still fit. So we look to see what the sides are announced. And then, obviously, the Challenge Cup is also on Friday night. At 8:45 in the evening, that's South African time, Edinburgh host Newport Gwent Dragons, which is going to be a cracker. And then on Saturday, 8:45, Gloucester versus Exeter. And I believe Donny Armand could be making his comeback for Exeter after injury for that. So, but I think Exeter will beat the Charon Whites. I think Exeter, their last couple of weeks' performance have been great, and they had a great win this weekend.
On to top 14, which obviously took place this weekend, the week between the quarters and the semis. And Racing drew with Montpellier on... let's start again. La Rochelle drew with Stade Francais 19-all on Friday night.
Stade with a massive comeback. And aside with that history and that sort of bank balance, they should be doing a lot better against La Rochelle.
They should indeed. And then another close game Saturday. Castres 22 over Bordeaux Bègles 20. Toulon went to Grenoble and actually won 35-24, which is an amazing thing because we know about away sides in the top 14. Toulouse up over Bayonne 20 points to 17. Oyonnax, as we said, probably the shock of the decade, getting up over Clermont 11-10. And you were saying that Clermont didn't rest any players. They actually...
No, they still fielded a pretty solid side. I'll get it for you in a sec. But I tell you, Oyonnax have been there and thereabouts in the top 14. But there were two South Africans playing there. But one, Jody Jenica, you'll remember him. He's a Durban boy. Played for the Sharks, Vodacom Cup, possibly Currie Cup side. And he's a Rovers boy, if I'm not mistaken. So it was great to see that. And let me just quickly find...
While you're finding that, Brive up over Lyon 22-20 and Racing 24-24 with Montpellier. No draws in the top 14 all season, 2 in one weekend.
Yeah, massive. Just in terms of that side, they didn't, they had they had Mike Delaney starting, they had Benson Stanley, Aurélien Rougerie coming back from injury, Zach Guilford. Up front, their pack was a little bit different, but, Thomas Domingo, T. Paulo, Clement Rick or Julien Pierre, they got, that's their usual-ish side. They weren't too far off. Brock James on the bench, so yeah, pretty. And
handy. As we said, Lee Halfpenny picked up. No, that was at Toulon. Never mind. Shut up, Don.
Yes.
What those results did mean is that with 4 games to go in the top 14, Toulon have stretched out to a 3-point lead over Clermont at the top of the table. Stade Francais managed to hold on to third spot with their draw. They would have probably still been in third if they... No, they would have lost. And yes, even if they'd lost, they would have still been in third with 59 points. And then Racing and Toulouse on 57 each, making up 4 and 5. Oyonnax are sneaking up into 6th spot and now challenging for a European spot. Order of a Sardine. I think they only got promoted 2 seasons ago.
Somewhere around there.
Montpellier look like they're pretty much out of the running, and the rest of them are gone. Lyon, bottom of the table.
Yeah, they took a bit of a tight loss this weekend, but
and
they look like they might go down. And when you're done, I just want to have a chat.
And Castres, who won the title a year or two ago, have managed to pull themselves away from the bottom of the table in the last couple of weeks, but they're still not safe because I think the bottom 2 go down or play playoffs.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but it's been confirmed from the Pro D2, which is the second division, that PAU have been promoted. They've won the league. They can't not be promoted.
PAU.
PAU. And then news out of that, Colin Slade has signed for them.
Everybody's signed for them.
And he will be joining Conrad Smith, who has also signed for them. So they are bulking up their side early doors, which they will hopefully not yo-yo in and out of the league next year, the top 14.
And as you said earlier, we talk about South African sides losing players to European rugby, but New Zealand is also being decimated, particularly of their more experienced guys and the Aussies. Will Genia is now signed.
It's post World Cup, but you know what? It's going to happen. But I want the guys to know that when they leave, they can't play for their country. That's not happening in South Africa, and that slows down the exodus in Australia and New Zealand. You only have it once every 4 years, really, except like when the lights are like...
it's usually guys that have got 100 caps.
Yeah, they've got ample caps, or they know that they're not going to be in the mix, or youngsters that'll go and then come back. Yeah. But that's what it is. We are going to hurt. I promise you, mark my words, this is going to hurt South African rugby more than ever and more than any other side.
On to the Aviva Premiership. Also, as we said, had games this weekend after the quarterfinals in the Champions Cup, and Bath has seemed to have come from mid-table obscurity when we had our last show 3 or 4 weeks ago to challenging for a semi-final spot with a 29-19 win over the Newcastle Falcons. They're now up to 3rd all of a sudden, and they weren't really in contention for a semi-final spot the last time I spoke to you.
Yeah, Exeter and Wasps were up there, and they've kind of fallen a little bit by the wayside. Bath were there and thereabouts and are slowly getting...
What are you on about? Exeter beat Northampton.
Yes, I know, but I'm saying a couple of weeks ago, they've had a bit of a tough mid-season. They're picking it up now, which is great for them to end on a high. But Bath have doing well. Sam Burgess played Lucy, started at loose forward this weekend, had an exceptional game. He this position probably more suits him, where he gets to do a lot of tight stuff. He does offer a little bit in the open and stuff like that.
And rugby league crash ball.
But he had a decent one there, and I tell you, Bath are looking handy. They've always been there and thereabouts. They had a slow start to the season, but they're building well.
Surrey thumped Leicester 22-6. Harlequins got up over Gloucester 29-26.
That's a massive result because both of them were buggering around mid-table and
well, they're still buggering around mid-table.
Yeah,
to be
but
honest.
Gloucester falling away.
And then London Irish with probably one of their better results for a long time, getting up over Sale Sharks with a 20... Where did it go?
26-22 or 26-24, something like that.
Yeah.
Also, 77-minute penalty, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know, but it was a tight game. Great result. And Exeter also dominated this weekend.
I see while we were away, London Welsh picked up a point.
They've had that point for a while.
Oh, have they?
Yes, bonus point loss.
Anyway, they lost to Wasps 40 points to 13, and as we said, Exeter Chiefs thumped Northampton 21-10. Northampton with a European Cup hangover.
Massive result for Exeter, and they completely outplayed Northampton as well. It was an unbelievable game to watch, and Exeter and their Tomahawk chop are going places, I think.
So with 3 games to go, Exeter are now in a semi-final spot.
And a Challenge Cup semi-final this weekend, so they could potentially walk away with 2 trophies.
That's an amazing stat. Leicester Tigers' points differential for the season is -2. The once mighty Tigers. As we said, European rugby this weekend, it's the big semi-finals, and based on experience, they're usually probably the best games to watch because the finals usually not much in terms of entertainment.
Well, last year it was.
No, it's good. It's good to watch, but the brutality of those semis, particularly when Irish sides take on French sides, I can't wait. Enjoy. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to be discussing Super Rugby and then Bockwatch, talking centres.
Yep.
You're listening to Driving Maul on Loud Radio. We'll be back after some Bob Marley. Welcome back to Driving Maul on Loud Radio. It's time to talk all things Super Rugby and an interesting weekend in terms of results, and I say that basically because I just got super brewed in my mood before the Sharks-Lions game. To be honest, I forgot to pick the Blues-Brumbies, but I would have picked the Brumbies anyway based on form, and I got that one horribly wrong.
I got that one right.
Yeah, but you were taking a punt trying to move up the table.
No. Honestly, I looked at that game and I thought the Blues to 7 without a win. They looked good last week and fell away. I thought they might take a little bit more out of it. They're classy side.
They look good this week as well, and also fell away, but managed to hold on. To be honest.
That's true.
Because they raced to a 13-0 lead at halftime through a Bowden try and 2 Bowden penalties and a conversion. Obviously,
it's great. Bowden's been a great asset to them coming back from Europe, and they just barely managed to hang on. 13-0.
Brumbies then took the lead in the second half through a Talioli try and 3 Leleafano penalties to lead 14-13 with mere minutes to go. Blues win a penalty.
I want to have a moan. That penalty to me. Now I'm watching this, and bearing in mind I've got my Super Bowl at stake. I'm watching this. They got a penalty on the 50 meter. I'm thinking, okay, I know
on the touchline.
No, in the middle. And I'm thinking to myself, Nick White's got the legs to get this if the Brumbies get a penalty. The scrum has not been great either way. There's been a little bit of a coin flip, and I thought to myself, there's a minute left. Kick the ball out far, okay? Have a line out. This all wastes time. Then, if the Brumbies, let's say you lose the line out, because they didn't have a bad time with the line out. It wasn't great, but they didn't have a bad time. They lose the line out. The Brumbies have to go 70 meters to score, which I would rather they do than have a kick to win if there was a scrum penalty. Then they pick a scrum.
Lost. Who picked the scrum?
Then the Blues have a penalty.
Okay.
They decide to scrum it to waste time, so they can obviously secure the ball and kick it out.
And they give away a scrum pin.
Bugger hinges and boom, straight away. The Brumbies went ballistic when they won that penalty. 50 metres out, Nick White, thank you very much. He did it last year. Sorry, he didn't do it last year, but it's similar to where the Waratahs won from the year before. Quality little kick, and the guy's confident. And I'm just thinking to myself, they've actually pooed it. And he stepped up, and I saw as he struck it, I could see he fell away. He definitely tried to give it a bit too much, and the Blues hang on. But just in terms of that captaincy, I just thought it was not the right option.
Indeed, but I wanted to just come back to the kahunas on young Ohio West to land the penalty to win the game from wide on the touchline. Yeah. I mean, that was a monster kick.
He's been kicking okay, not as good as he was last year, but he also only been on for 10 minutes, and he hadn't had a kick yet. So it was his first one of the game,
and he nailed it. It wasn't like it it snuck in off a post. It went dead centre. So that was the Friday morning game. This weekend we only had one, which is quite weird. Anyway, on to Saturday morning South African time, and where are we? Oh, it was the South Island derby, the big South Island derby. Crusaders versus the Highlanders. Crusaders coming back from South Africa. In hindsight, I probably should have picked the Highlanders on this one because it's a team travelling back from the Dark Continent all the way to the South Island of New Zealand. The Highlanders had looked to be in pretty decent form. I somehow decided that no, the Highlanders will probably get up, probably lose this one because it's the Crusaders and it's midway through the season, and the Crusaders tend to start coming good, and they certainly looked the fucking shit when they dismantled the Sharks in that card fest at Kings Park the week before. Anyway, not to be. Highlanders 25, Crusaders 20. And then
the Super Brew demise carried on.
Yeah, absolutely. 0 from 0. No, 0 from 2, I should say.
Yes.
And then...
which incidentally still 0%, I just want to tell you.
Yeah. And then on to arguably the biggest upset of the weekend. The Stormers, 4 tries in a rugby game for the first time.
And that's the biggest upset. It's not who they won. It's the fact that they got a bonus point win. 4 tries,
a bonus point try. It makes it... I think that is their 4th one in 58 or 59 games. It's the 12th under listen to me, Alistair Coetzee in 89 games. But credit where credit is due. The Stormers played the perfect game in terms of their game plan. The defensive lines, the defensive rushing, everything was outstanding. And then they fed off turnovers. They made the champion Waratahs look pretty average. That Naya Yavoro, whatever his name is, I think there's 2 guys running around in a human skin suit there because he is that big. But monstered his way over for a try and then got absolutely monstered for 2 Stormers tries. The turnover ball, Ches and Colby with his first try in Super Rugby danced his way around him. I think it was Damien de Allender that put him on his ass with a handoff for his try. De Allender picked up 2, and Cobus van Wyk with yet another one of those. This time it was actually planned. Earlier in the season, Katrakilis just got the clearance kick wrong, but this one was just timed to perfection. Bounce of the ball, and that kid has got some gas. Yes. Unfortunately, he's the wrong colour to play wing at top level in this country.
But regardless of that, I don't want to talk about politics. I want to talk about good rugby players, and I spoke very highly of him last year. I really think he's got it. He's tall, big, and quick. He's got a great nose for the line, and I tell you, Kurt Coleman with a great kick ahead, a lucky bounce, but Cobus van Wyk has to run inside to get that ball, and that sort of bow line has helped him. Brilliant stuff. I thought, incidentally, Nayavaro is not travelling with the Waratahs this weekend because of visa issues.
Oh, I thought you were going to say because the plane's overloaded.
Yeah, so he won't travel with the Waratahs. He's a massive asset. And as I mentioned 2-3 weeks ago, where everyone was doing their utmost or doing their best to run Chesm Colby down when he got flattened by Ndolo, what you lose on the swings, you make on the roundabouts. And that guy's got a hell of a lot to offer. You know, he is going to get beaten on a one-on-one crash ball with 110 kilograms running at him. He might slow the guy down, he might take him down, but more often than not, you wouldn't bank on it. And you must sort out your defensive lines accordingly. If it's a one-on-one with your fullback, then then don't take those 3 or 4 tries he creates and save that one. Then you decide. But I would rather have him. I think he's an exceptional talent.
But just in terms of that, it's a well-known fact that in the Rugby World Cup final, James Small was lined up against John Olomu, who was basically the behemoth that was like creating all kinds of things. Coach Kitch Christie noticed that Lomu always carried the ball under the left arm. He made Small line up outside him to channel him back inside, and Yapi Mulder came across on the cover defence. Why the Stormers aren't doing that with Colby when you know what I'm trying to say? It's like get Colby to aim at the ball and and then have the covering, because he's got a big wing and a big centre in front of him.
That is the thing. And with Paul True there, he's the backline stroke defensive coach, not a defensive coach, but he's their back coach, or he's something coach. And so I'm looking forward to see what Paul True brings in the mix. But there are ways of working around having a small 15. They must just actually get the flippin' brain power and do it, because they can do it. They've got massive guys all over the back line, except at fullback. Look at Lee Halfpenny; he's not much bigger than Colby, and he's a world class act. So I don't see why Colby can't be. And it was an exceptional result for the Storm. I say one thing: I didn't expect it, and I didn't expect them to win in that way. But quite a disruptive game.
I had the scoreline the other way, to be perfectly honest with you. It was disruptive. I mean, 4 tries to 2, but most of them, in fact, pretty much everything was scored off turnover, but what it means is, I did a little bit of research because I've been banging on to this for a while, and I found that since Alistair Coetzee became the Stormers backline coach, the Stormers have prior to this game, had the joint second worst 4-try conversion ratio out of all the games they've played, out of all teams in Super Rugby over the last 6 seasons. The worst is the Force, and they were joint second worst with the Kings, who only played 1 season. They're now third worst because they added an extra one to theirs, and they've
I would like you, considering you spend so much time on it, I'd like you to let me know how many of those games the Stormers scored 3 tries.
Plenty.
That's an important thing to know.
But you must see how many of those games they scored 3 tries with 25 to 30 minutes of the game still to go. That's the more frustrating part from my perspective. Anyway, great win for the Stormers away from home. First one on the road, and the first in, I think they'd lost 3 on the bounce against Kiwi sides.
Allendy's try, that first one was the first time the Stormers scored in Sydney in 8 years.
Yes.
How?
Sure, but
you don't play every time, but it's still... The fact that they've played there before and not scored a try is quite interesting.
No, absolutely. Look, it was an outstanding win against the reigning champions. Talking about outstanding wins, the Cheetahs 24-15 over the Force. We had a little bit of a banter at the start of the season. I picked the Force to be my best non-contender in terms of unexpected places in the table. Instead, they are hovering down the bottom. And lose another one at home after leading 10-8 at halftime. Heinrich Brosseau leads the tackle count in Super Rugby this season now, and he missed the first 3 games.
Yeah, the Cheetahs have got a good thing going, and Joe Peterson has taken a lot of heat this season, and I think he has not been that bad. I think he's been okay. The whole team's not been performing exceptionally well, and he's been taking most of the shots, body shots there. But he got a man of the match performance, and they're looking pretty handy. They've got some great guys. Willie Leroux, in sort of opposed to Joe Peterson's getting the man of the match, Willie Leroux came in a lot more in this game. We offered some more, and they've got some decent backs, and so their forwards are always handy. And Brosseau is starting to get noticed again. It's not like he ever was unnoticed. I think he's only been unnoticed for one person in the country. But exceptional.
That person happens to have changed a couple of times, but it was still the same person.
The Springbok coach.
Yeah. On to the game of the weekend from my money. The Lions 23, the Sharks 21. If you haven't seen the highlights from this game, just go and watch them, because the tries that are scored in here, there's probably 3 contenders for try of the season already. They'll be up there. The tries in this game will be up there in the top 10 tries of the season, just in terms of structured play, handling, attacking the line, breaking gaps. It was outstanding to watch, and a credit to the game, really. And I know the Sharks lost another one, Sharky, but it was a close run thing. They missed a penalty at the end to
win.
They would have won it. Zellinger pushed it. They led 14-11 at half time. And as I said, Manisi's try, Foster's try, Detroit's try, and Mvolvo's try. Those four are right up there for my money in terms of what I've seen scored this season.
Unbelievable game of rugby, and I said at the end of the weekend, I thought all South African teams played great rugby, and everyone had to go and said, "Oh, what about the Sharks?" The Sharks played good rugby. They lost, they still played good rugby, and for the Sharks to play that sort of rugby, pick themselves up after the last 3 weeks of all the shit that has been going down at the Shark Tank, I thought was really good. A couple of youngsters put their hands up. I thought Esthuizen had a decent game. He tends to ball over a little bit every now and then. I thought Zelling,
a monster.
He's a big kid. I thought Zelling was quite handy at 10. It was a very good game of rugby, and the Lions won it. It could have gone either way. The Lions deserved the win. The Sharks deserved the win. But what an unbelievable game of rugby! And for once, every single South African team played great rugby. And if you look at what happened last week. If you look at what happened last week, it was quite interesting. Now all of a sudden everyone's like, every South Africans are the best side, and this guy and this guy and this guy. This next weekend coming up is going to be a challenge.
It is, and we'll get into this next weekend now. The Bulls 43, the Reds 22, and this one's a bit of an odd game because the Bulls raced into a 24-5 halftime lead. They then extended that before the Reds came back to score a 4-try bonus point and be down 29-22 with about 10 to play. And I thought, oh, here we go, grandstand finish. It was a grandstand finish by the Bulls, 43-22, but... And if you haven't seen them, go find Judge Rugby's tweets about the behaviour of a certain Deon Greyling at the breakdown. Diabolical. How he hasn't been cited for one, never mind both of those, is beyond me. Filthy. Absolutely filthy. Doesn't belong on a rugby field. And I don't think he will ever play in a Bok jersey again the way he's been carrying on.
I don't know. It's difficult to make that call because, to be fair, Hanneke Man makes some interesting decisions normally.
Yeah, 6 tries to 4 though in this cracker.
Great game of rugby, and the Bulls. And I tell you, Francois Hougaard had a phenomenal game, and everyone is like, "Oh no, he's going to be back in the Bok." And I don't want to see him in a Bok jersey on the wing. I don't.
No.
I think we've got better wingers, and I think we've got.
But he's a one-track pony. He plays exceptionally well at altitude on hard fields where the Bulls are playing their rugby.
But the same
in the wet weather in Europe in a World Cup, he's going to become unstuck.
I don't necessarily agree with you. What I do know about him, and even when he's playing at scrum half, is, and it's not good for any player to play when their pack's getting beaten, but he does not handle going backwards well. So he plays very, very, very well when they are going forward, and he gets front foot ball, and gets his space, and he's 10. He's really confident as to what's going on. When that's not happening, he is nowhere. And that's more evident when he's playing at 9, and he hasn't really been exceptionally good at 11 recently, and he had a good game last weekend, and the week before it was fairly decent, so we must wait and see.
Now, before we get on to Bokwatch and talk about centres, to just run through the table after this weekend's results. The Hurricanes didn't play, still top of the log by 6 points.
As you do.
To be fair, they're actually only top by 3, but the Chiefs can't take second because of the weird format that this competition has. Brumbies managed to stay in second with a loser's point. They would have been overtaken by the Bulls if no, they wouldn't have. The points differential would have been the same thing. Anyway, Bulls are the top South African side in third. Chiefs also didn't play but hang on to fourth spot. Highlanders move up to fifth. Stormers get back into the sixth spot. But the South African Conference is where it's all happening because the Bulls are top on 24. Stormers 22, Lions 21, Sharks 20. It is still wide open. And the Cheetahs, to be honest, are a couple of wins away from being in the mix as well on 13 points.
Bulls, Sharks this weekend.
Now,
let's have a little quick dream because it's a reality. Sharks bonus point win, not allowing the Bulls a win, and all of a sudden Sharks are not top of the table, but they leapfrog massively. It's so tight in this SA conference, and it's great to see in a World Cup here. And
look, I'll be honest with you though, bonus point win in a local derby they're few and far between, Sean.
Yes, I know, but the Sharks aren't singing off the same hymn sheet as usual. They seem to be opening up a little bit.
No, I understand that.
So the Bulls, to be fair.
But they're playing in Durban, and the Sharks have been cucking Durban all season.
That was that other team. The new Sharks team are pretty good.
But what it does mean is if the Sharks do beat the Bulls, and the Bulls pick up a loser's point, the Bulls will still hold on to their lead, except the Stormers could sneak it because they've got the force and are more than likely to win that one, saying that the force will go and win this weekend. Anyway, the games this weekend, coming off a bye, the Chiefs take on the Crusaders. That one could be a humdinger on a Friday morning. Hopefully we are on air.
We should be. I'll find out. We'll tweet. Just keep an eye on Blokes on the Couch, and Judge Rugby will send out their message this evening.
And then Saturday morning, Canes versus the Waratahs will be a humdinger in Wellington. Highlanders Blues, another all New Zealand clash. Brumbies versus the Rebels. Rebels also coming off a bye. Brumbies coming off a loss, playing back at home. Force Stormers. The Force are they're nowhere. But the likelihood of a bonus point try by either of these sides is unlikely, given the fact that they are two of the bottom three in Super Rugby all time, and the Kings no longer actually play Super Rugby, so they're the bottom two of the existing. And then it's the Sharks versus the Bulls, the big game of the weekend, other than the Crusaders versus the Chiefs. And then the Cheetahs are home to play the Reds. And as I said, the Cheetahs are just a couple of wins away from being in the mix. And they like to win at home when they come back from tour. And the Reds are playing like cuck. So just quickly to go through this one, I have a suspicion the Chiefs will get up over the Crusaders.
No, the Crusaders will win that.
The Canes are going to dismantle New South Wales. Because... No. Yes,
Waratahs will win that.
No, I'm not betting against the Hurricanes ever again.
Why did you bet against them on their bye week?
No, I bet against them far too many times this season, and they're unbeaten and top of the log. Highlanders Blues. I have a suspicion that the Blues have used all their energy in that one. They're going down south, and the Highlanders are going to trounce them.
Highlanders will win, yeah.
Brumbies Rebels. The Brumbies playing at home will bounce back and thump the Rebels, who are coming off a bye week.
Ooh, Derby, interesting.
Force Stormers. Everything inside me says the Stormers will win this one, but this is Super Rugby and the Force will probably sneak it, but I'm still going to go with the Stormers win.
It's Stormers A versus Stormers B. Welcome to Cape Town.
The big game of the weekend, Sharks Bulls. I'm tempted to go draw, to be perfectly honest with you. It all depends on whether it rains in Durban in April, which it usually does, and I just have a suspicion that the Bulls are more settled. The Sharks are bringing a bunch of guys back that were rested. They said they are in contention, but do me a favour. And then the Cheetahs, as I said, I think they'll get up over the Reds, even though they're coming back from a tour. They had an uplifting win in Perth, and should bounce back in Perth. In Perthfontein now, they're in Bloemfontein. So the Bloemtars will get up over the Reds. And there you have it.
Interesting. Right.
Bookwatch.
Okay, so Bookwatch is basically when we have a little discussion about guys and that should be playing in the green and gold that are currently in form and in contention. But we think they should be.
And we're not going to talk entire sides every week. We're going to pick a position, and this week we're going with 12.
Well, yeah, I'd also like to have a brief chat about 13.
Fair enough.
But 12.
Because most of the 12s play 13 now anyway.
Shut up. If you look at just this weekend's performance, 12s that stood out, they were all South African.
Yes.
Esterhuizen for the Sharks.
Massive. He's huge.
De Hellender for the Stormers.
He's also massive and huge.
Mnisi for the Lions.
He's also pretty decent and solid.
And Odendaal for the Bulls.
He's a lock, is he not?
He's a big kid. But just on that, they're all young, and they're all looking to stamp their mark. I think for me, the two that I'm most happy about are Hardem Nisi and Damien De Allender. De Allender is no secret that I've been a massive fan of him for a long time, and I always said he'd be a Springbok, and he had a great game. He's been standing up against the world leaders in 12s this whole season. He's been doing okay. He's been winning and losing some battles, but he has never been absolutely taken apart. He does have his flaws, but this weekend he picked it up and did well. Howdem Nisi, that guy, to come from where he has it last season, he botched a little bit in the Stormers where he went for that winning try and it got knocked out of his hand, and the Lions didn't win it, and then he's been on the bench ever since, and he hasn't really had a chance to prove himself. He came out this weekend and improved himself. That kid is big, He's got gas and he's got great hands.
You know what? I had the privilege of watching him in a live doing some commentary on a Varsity Cup game between Madibas and UCT at the Green Mile. I think the final score was 8-8 in that game, and he scored a try, and he was the standout player on the park for 80 minutes. And at the time, I said to Gareth Rossley, "There's someone for the future. That kid has got the mix." And I mean the skill to take the restart that led to the winning try against the Bulls last week was outstanding. The finish to score his try this week. His defensive work is outstanding. He's got a decent boot on him. He's also got the ability to put little chips and grubbers through, not just clearance kicks. He's got creative little kicks in his arsenal. And I know we don't like to talk about the political side of things, but he's the right shade in terms of making it at a higher level. No, but it just the simple fact is that in this country, unfortunately, the players of colour are what gets spoken about in terms of at a higher level, because there's constant talk about X number of players have got to be, and I like to talk about the guys that potentially deserve to be there. And I have a suspicion that based on talent and skill and ability, from what I've seen from Howard Manisi, he will be a Springbok at some stage in his career.
I think he's great, and I think he's got what it takes. And I think just like Damien de Allende and Esterhuizen, is the guys just need to be polished a little bit, and they need to be nurtured coming through. They've got the raw talent.
But
now
the
they
depth
just need
we'd
to
have at
spend.
centre now in this country as well.
It's all at 12. It's almost since Heineke Meyer has decided to disregard the fact that a 13 is a specialist position, we have lost all our 13s. The only 13s that are performing, I think of last year. And
Waylon Murray's been going all right.
Waylon's been okay, but he's been so, and he's still got a bit of work to do. Jean de Jong's been stepping up, but he did fall off Naya Ovoro. Naya Ovoro is a big guy, but he came in an angle from behind where he could easily have gone down on the legs, and he's gone straight for the thunder thighs and got cleaned. I think he could have done better there. Having said that, though, he's very good. He's got a senior role in the side. He's the best 13 in the country, like out and out 13. Unless you want to maybe bring Jesse Creel in, who normally plays 13, but he's a fullback.
His run to set up Homewood for his first try. Sorry, I forgot about that.
And then also the Lions. The problem with the Lions centres is nobody's noticing the Lions centres because, with respect to them, they're an average side of players. There's no stars there, and they're playing so well together. It's almost like everyone's like, oh, they can't not play. There's no standout guys individually that can work. Where the likes of Forster and stuff have been doing really well. And I think it's time that we start talking about the Lions players in more of a senior role in South African rugby, and by that I mean moving into Springboks, especially their backline players. But where do we go? What do we do? Last year you look at Paul Jordan for the Sharks. He was an exceptional outside centre. He was doing really, really well, defending well. He also played inside a number of times. And you look at Rainer Benjamin. That guy, for me, honestly, last year would have selected him at 13. His sevens break up and mould and everything. He's got great vision. He defends exceptionally well. He's got a lot of gas. And he plays 13 and can cover somewhere else, because I know Heineke Meyer loves a player that can cover 78 positions. But, where have those guys gone this year? And what's happening? What 13 would you pick? But, onto the 12, those are guys all in form. They're all a bit green for the World Cup besides De Allende. And Jean de Villiers is going to come back. Jan Safontain's been rested or not in the mix. JJ Engelbrecht's average to poor.
Harold Foster is a name that is starting to make waves.
Very much so.
The Lionel Mapui is a retreaded winger who has been in and around the Bok mix.
He's okay. He hasn't stood out as a 13, but then again, but the problem is Heineke Meyer doesn't want a 13. So if you want to make the Springboks as a 13, you have to be world class.
No, you've got to be big and quick. I know what you're saying. I agree with you. But unfortunately, when you look at the mold,
I don't want to. That's what I don't. I want to talk book watch as to who should be there, not who Heineke Meyer is going to pick.
I know,
Let's put the names out there.
But we've put the names out there. The simple fact is, when you now look at it in the mold that Meyer's looking for, he wants the big quick guy at outside centre and the big quick guy at inside centre. There's a lot of them that have got a future. The Esterhuizen, Manisi, those two, in my mind, out of everyone that we've mentioned in terms of the young and up and coming, the Islanders already in the mix.
I think those two, I agree with you. Those two are going to be putting pressure on Damien de Allende in the future, because those two guys,
and JJ Engelbrecht and Jan Seyfontein. The one for me that I'm surprised never kicked on, because I watched him live and I thought, here we go. Here's a kid that is going to play at a higher level. Is I've gone blank. Outside centre for the Cheetahs. Johan Sarri. I really thought he seemed to have it all. I have a suspicion there might be a bit of a soft touch in the head, which is with
his move to the Bulls, and it happens so often, kills players.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys are saying Oudendaal's going to get his game coached out of him, so I hope it doesn't happen. But his move to the Bulls, he's slowly finding his feet at the Cheetahs, and he's playing decent rugby. But both the Cheetahs and the Lions are not looked at. The Cheetahs not anymore are not looked at as a side that's producing, first choice backline Springboks. When you look at these new guys, the guys are not making a big enough impact to come through. But Sardi is an option, and maybe the rest of the season he lifts his game up. But it's difficult to notice an outside centre when you're losing all the time.
I know, and it's difficult to have those kinds of players noticed when the history has shown. Yeah, history has shown that over the last two Bok coaches, maybe even three, the bulk of what ends up in a Springbok squad comes out of Durban, Pretoria, and Cape Town. And on that bombshell,
regardless of
form and ability, and the guys that are in the Cheetahs and the Lions end up going to play at those unions if they want to make it at Bok level as well. That's awesome, Sharky. It's been fantastic. Congratulations once again to Shimlers on their maiden Varsity Cup victory, and it wasn't like it was in debate pretty much from, I think, the 43rd minute it was game over.
And to Durban on the Community Cup win, and to all the South African sides who played great rugby this weekend.
Absolutely.
Keep it up.
And in fact, it might be the first time in a long time that all South African sides picked up a point on a weekend.
Playing good rugby.
Yes.
Because the Sharks picked up a number of points, but they weren't playing good rugby.
Awesome. It's been great. We'll see you Friday morning, 9:35 kickoff for the Crusaders versus the Chiefs. Cannot wait. You've been listening to Driving Maul on Loud Radio. We'll chat to you next week.
Cheers, bud.